Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gotten a ton of requests to dig into self-storage investing.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, right? It's this fascinating potential avenue to, diversify a portfolio.
Sure.
And we've actually been digging through a ton of research on it.
Yeah.
So, we brought in an expert to kind of break it all down with us.
Happy to be here.
So, some of the things that we were looking at were, market research, picking properties, even looking at publicly traded self-storage companies.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a really in-depth look.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that kind of jumped out at us right away was the industry growth.
Yeah.
The research mentions things like urbanization, the rise of e-commerce,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't just say oh, those are growing,
Right.
It gets specific. It highlights how in the top 10 U.S. metro areas, the average apartment size
Yeah.
has shrunk by almost 10% over the last decade.
Wow.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So, no wonder people need more storage space.
Well, and it's not just the smaller living spaces, right? I think the research also mentions a significant shift in consumer behavior.
Yep.
With online shopping, people are just buying more stuff.
Yeah.
And it's they need somewhere to put it.
Right.
Businesses, especially e-commerce businesses, they need space to store inventory. So
true.
yeah.
So it's all of these trends are converging
Mm-hmm.
to create this really strong demand.
Yeah.
But the research also makes it clear that, before anyone jumps in and buys the first self-storage unit they see,
Right.
you really need to do thorough market research.
Absolutely. You can't just assume that any self-storage facility will be profitable, right?
Right.
So it's really about understanding the local market, right? Who are your potential customers in the area?
Yeah.
What are their needs? Are they looking for, climate-controlled units, vehicle storage?
Oh, and what are the average incomes?
Mm-hmm.
Are there new housing developments going up?
Makes sense.
These are all things you need to think about.
Yeah, it even mentions zoning regulations.
No, for sure.
Who knew?
Yeah, zoning laws determine, what types of businesses can even operate in certain areas.
Uh-huh.
And they can dictate things like building height, lot coverage,
Right.
which directly affect the size and layout of a self-storage facility.
I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, it matters.
Okay, so let's say you've done your homework.
Okay.
You found an awesome location. It fits the criteria. What kind of returns can someone actually expect from this type of investment?
So there are a few key metrics to look at, right? One is the cap rate,
Okay.
which measures the property's rate of return
Mm-hmm.
relative to its market value.
I see.
Essentially, it tells you how much income the property is expected to generate
Okay.
compared to its price.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, so a higher cap rate generally means better return.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then there's the cash-on-cash return.
Okay.
This one looks at the annual cash flow you receive from the property
Mm-hmm.
compared to the initial cash you invested.
Okay, so if I put down $100,000 and I make $10,000 in cash flow in a year, my cash on cash return would be 10%.
That's right.
Okay.
And then we have the internal rate of return,
Mm-hmm.
IRR.
Yep.
The IRR is a little bit more complex, but it helps us understand the overall profitability of the investment
Uh-huh.
over its entire lifespan,
Okay.
taking into account things like the time value of money.
Time value of money.
Yeah, this basically means that money today
Mm-hmm.
is worth more than the same amount of money in the future because you can invest it and earn a return.
Oh, interesting.
So the IRR factors that in
I see.
when calculating your overall return.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've got these metrics, right?
Right.
But you also mentioned operating expenses earlier, and that's something investors really need to factor in.
For sure. Yeah. Operating expenses are a crucial part of the equation.
Right.
These are the costs associated with running the facility.
Yeah.
Things like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, even marketing.
So you can't just look at the potential rental income.
Right.
You have to subtract those expenses.
Exactly. To get a realistic picture
Right.
of your profit potential.
Got it.
And of course, don't forget about financing costs if you're using a loan,
Mm-hmm.
because those interest payments, they can have a significant impact on your bottom line.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so crunching the numbers, understanding those metrics is crucial.
Uh-huh.
But what I really found interesting in the research was, talk about value add opportunities in self-storage.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a great area to focus on.
Okay.
Value add opportunities are really just, ways to enhance your property and like boost its income potential.
Okay.
So it's not just about collecting rent,
Right.
It's about being proactive and finding ways to like increase the value of your investment.
So it's like taking something good and making it even better.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah. Think of it like this.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a self-storage facility. It's in a decent location.
Yeah.
Generating okay income.
Uh-huh.
But you see potential.
Okay.
Maybe the units are outdated or the security system could be improved.
Right.
So that's where the value add comes in.
Got it.
You invest in those upgrades. Maybe you renovate the units,
Uh-huh.
add climate control, install better lighting, beef up the security.
Okay.
And suddenly,
Yeah.
you're attracting a higher paying clientele.
Makes sense.
You're increasing the overall value of the property.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to like see the appeal here.
Yeah.
I mean, the research even mentioned things like expansions
Uh-huh.
and adding like ancillary revenue streams. Can you give me some examples of that?
Sure.
Okay.
So let's say your facility,
Mm-hmm.
it's in like a high demand area,
Right.
but you're running out of space.
Okay.
You could explore, expanding the facility,
Yeah.
adding more units
Yeah.
to, meet that demand.
Right.
Or you could get creative with like ancillary revenue streams.
Right. Okay.
Think about offering truck rentals, selling packing supplies,
Uh-huh.
partnering with like a local moving company.
Yeah.
Those additional services,
Right.
they not only generate extra income,
Yeah.
but they also provide like added convenience for your customers,
Mm-hmm.
making your facility more attractive overall.
Oh, so you're like creating this one-stop shop to have all their like moving and storage needs.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it can be a really effective strategy.
But let's be real for a second, right?
Right.
Like every investment has risks. So like what are some potential downsides to self-storage?
Yeah, that's a crucial question.
Right.
And the research definitely doesn't like shy away from the risks.
Okay.
One thing to consider is economic sensitivity.
Oh.
During a recession,
Right.
people might downsize,
Mm-hmm.
move in with family.
Sure.
They just decide they can live without that extra storage space.
Right.
So this can lead to lower occupancy rates
Makes sense.
and decreased rental income.
Yeah, it makes storage seem like more of a luxury
Right.
when times are tough.
Exactly. And then you also have competition to think about,
Right.
new facilities popping up in your area
Mm-hmm.
that could eat into your market share,
Yeah.
especially if they're offering, lower prices
Right.
or more amenities.
Got it.
It's really important to stay ahead of the curve
Mm-hmm.
and constantly assess like the competitive landscape.
So you're not just competing with like other self-storage facilities, right?
Right.
It's also like,
Any alternative storage options people might have.
right. Yeah.
People might choose to store their belongings with family, rent a garage,
Hmm.
use portable storage containers.
I see.
So it's really important to understand all of those.
Okay, so those are definitely risks.
Yeah.
What can investors do to mitigate them?
Well, diversification is always a good strategy, right? Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
consider investing in multiple properties
Mm-hmm.
in different locations.
Okay.
This helps, spread the risk
Got it.
and reduces the impact of like any localized economic downturn or
Just
increased competition.
So don't bet everything on one location.
Right, exactly.
Or one type of facility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another crucial aspect is insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have adequate coverage for property damage,
Right.
liability claims, loss of income
Mm-hmm.
due to like unforeseen circumstances.
That makes sense. So far, we've been, focusing on individual investors,
Mhm.
but our research also covered publicly traded self-storage companies.
Sure.
And some big names came up. I
Yeah.
was particularly interested in public storage.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
huge.
They are. Public storage is like the 800-pound gorilla
Wow.
of the self-storage world.
Yeah.
Over 2,500 locations
Really?
across the U.S. and internationally.
Wow. What makes them so successful?
Well, I mean, for one, they have incredible brand recognition.
Mm-hmm.
When people think of self-storage, like public storage is often the first name that pops into their head.
Like the Kleenex of self-storage.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they have a massive operational infrastructure, systems, processes, resources to manage that kind of portfolio.
So they're a well-oiled machine.
They are. They're very efficient.
Then there's extra space storage, another big one.
Yep, another big player.
They seem to be all about growth
Mm-hmm.
and technology.
They are, yeah. They've been like a leader in adopting online rentals,
Uh-huh.
contactless move-ins, smart locks,
Wow.
all sorts of other, tech-driven solutions.
So it's like they're really catering to the changing needs of customers.
They understand, like, today's consumer wants convenience and flexibility.
Right.
And they're leveraging technology to deliver that.
Interesting.
They've even got a mobile app
Really?
that lets customers, like, manage their accounts, pay bills,
Wow.
even control their unit's access remotely.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
Now, here's one that might surprise some people.
Okay.
U-Haul,
Uh-huh.
the moving truck company,
Right.
is actually a major player in the self-storage market.
It might seem unexpected,
Yeah.
but it makes sense.
I guess so.
When you think about it,
Right.
they already have this, like, massive network
Uh-huh.
of truck rental locations
Yeah.
across the country.
Right.
So adding self-storage units is kind of a natural extension
Makes sense.
for them, They're already in the moving business.
Right.
So why not offer storage as well?
Makes sense. Plus, they've already got,
A huge customer base.
right, that trusts their brand.
Yeah, that's a major advantage.
Okay, so we've got these, like, massive public companies.
Right.
What about smaller, like, independent operators?
Yeah,
Do they still have a place in this industry?
absolutely. Yeah, there's room for both,
Mm-hmm.
large and small players.
Okay.
In fact, independent operators often have, like, a unique advantage,
Oh, how so?
when it comes to local market knowledge
Sure.
and personalized service.
Right.
They can really cater to,
Yeah.
the specific needs of their community,
Oh, okay.
build strong relationships with their customers.
It's not just about size then.
No.
It's
Right.
it's about understanding the local market,
Right.
providing that personal touch.
Exactly. And independent operators can be more nimble,
Mm-hmm.
more responsive to, like, local market changes
Right.
than larger corporations.
Shatter.
And often have, a deeper understanding of the community's needs.
Yeah, it's like the classic David and Goliath story,
Uh-huh.
but in the self-storage industry.
It really is.
That's funny.
And that diversity is what makes this industry so, like, dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
You have these massive companies with nationwide reach,
Yeah.
and then you have these smaller local operators really ingrained in their communities.
Yeah.
Creates a really healthy balance.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to see how, like, this industry is evolving. We talked about the growing role of technology,
Mm-hmm.
and the research highlights some, like, pretty cool innovations, online rentals, contactless move-in.
For sure.
But what I thought was really interesting was, like, the smart locks and automated payment systems.
Yeah, those are game changers.
Right.
Smart locks, for instance, allow tenants to, like, access their units
Mm-hmm.
using their smartphones.
So no more fumbling with keys
Exactly.
or worrying about losing them.
You got it.
And I guess for operators, it provides, like, enhanced security and the
Right.
ability to, track access remotely.
Exactly.
And then automated payment systems, just
Yeah.
streamline everything.
Streamline the billing process.
Yeah.
Reduce the risk of late payments. So
It's a win-win.
it is.
Another interesting trend from the research was the focus on sustainability.
Mm.
I have to admit, like, that wasn't something I would have immediately
Exactly.
associated with this industry.
Right.
But, I mean, it makes sense.
It does, yeah.
Sustainability is becoming so important.
Across the board,
Yeah.
and we're seeing companies incorporate, like, energy efficient designs,
Mm.
solar panels, green building materials.
So, like, they're thinking about the environmental impact
Absolutely, yeah.
of their operations.
And it's not just about, being environmentally responsible.
Right.
It's also a smart business move.
Yeah.
Well, of course. Energy efficient buildings lead to significant cost savings.
Lower operating costs, smaller environmental footprint.
Yeah,
Win-win.
it is.
It's clear that self-storage is thriving,
Mm-hmm.
but are there any challenges or headwinds on the horizon?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it is important to, like, be aware of those potential challenges.
Right.
One factor to watch is interest rates.
Okay.
Rising interest rates can make it more expensive to finance,
Mm-hmm.
the acquisition or development of these properties.
So financing costs could become a bigger hurdle
They could.
for investors.
And then, of course, there's the issue of oversupply.
Right.
If too many new facilities are built
Mm-hmm.
in a certain market,
Right.
it can lead to increased competition
Makes sense.
and lower occupancy rates.
So it's all about that balance between supply and demand.
It is, yeah.
I think throughout this whole deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
we've been focusing on the financial aspects, market trends,
Sure.
nuts and bolts of self-storage investing.
Yeah.
But what about the human element?
That's interesting.
I can't help but wonder about the stories
Yeah.
behind those locked doors.
I know, right? It's easy to get caught up in the numbers.
Yeah.
And forget that, each storage unit
Mm-hmm.
represents a piece of someone's life.
Right.
You've got families storing heirlooms, entrepreneurs safeguarding inventory,
Wow.
artists protecting their creations. It's like a microcosm of
Yeah.
human experience.
That's like a hidden world
It is, yeah.
full of untold stories.
And it reminds us that self-storage is ultimately about people.
Right.
It's about, providing them with a safe and secure space
Mm-hmm.
to store the things that matter to them.
Makes sense.
Cherished possessions, business assets,
Right.
even a temporary solution
Yeah.
during a life transition.
Yeah, it adds a whole new layer of depth
It
to
does.
our understanding.
For sure.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
We've explored all the ins and outs of
Mhm.
self-storage investing,
Yeah.
from market trends and financial metrics
Mhm.
to risk management and the competitive landscape.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey
Absolutely.
through the world of self-storage.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
We talked about the impact of technology and sustainability,
Hmm.
but what about the future?
Hmm.
What other trends might shape self-storage in the years to come?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Think about the rise of artificial intelligence, virtual reality,
Uh-huh.
Internet of Things.
Right.
How might those technologies transform the way we store and access our belongings in the future?
I mean, could we see self-driving trucks delivering storage units on demand?
Maybe.
Or virtual reality tours of storage facilities
It's possible.
from the comfort of our home?
The possibilities are endless.
That is pretty exciting.
It's an exciting time to be following this industry for sure.
And I think that's the beauty of the deep dive, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding the present.
Mm,
It's about envisioning the future
exactly, yeah.
and all the possibilities that lie ahead.
We've only just scratched the surface here.
You're right.
There's so much more to discover.
I agree.
And, we encourage you to continue exploring.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions and stay curious.
Well said. So that wraps up our deep dive into self-storage investing.
Great talking to you.
It was great talking to you, too. We hope you found it informative, insightful,
Yeah,
and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
for sure.
Until next time, keep diving deep.